"Don't grab me. Don't grab me. I will drag you in this." Atlanta didn't just heat up that night. It ignited because in the middle of the chaos, a whisper turned into a headline and a headline into a wildfire. A shadowed recording surfaced raw, unstable, and impossible to ignore. A voice that sounded like Porsha, a presence that felt like Todd, and 4 words that detonated the Bravo universe: "I'm late, and it's Todd's." Within minutes, timelines collapsed. DMs exploded. Fan pages went dark, and then louder than ever. A so-called DNA report began circulating in private circles. Unverified, unsourced, but dangerous enough to fracture reputations. And right there in the crossfires stood Kandi, watching her marriage become a battlefield she never asked for. Because this wasn't just another rumor. This threatened a home, a brand, a family. But here's where the story twists. Before the tape, before the alleged report, before the internet crowned a villain, there were messages. Not theories, not blogs, not a source says. Messages. Texts that don't scream fear. They whisper intent. And what you're about to hear next isn't speculation. It's the moment a phone screen becomes a weapon and silence finally breaks. And I just want y'all to know what's in your hand. This is a screenshot of the text. What is this proving from her to me? Days later, she knew exactly what she was doing. This is a screenshot of the text. Finally got my phone back on. It's been broke for 3 days. By the way, I've been laughing every day since Queens. We was turned up for real. Just want you to know I'm not going to rape you on camera. So, no worry. I said. Can you say anything? Atlanta didn't just feel hot that night. It felt volatile, like the city itself was holding its breath. Because when a shadowed audio clip surfaced online, everything changed in minutes. The leak wasn't clear. It wasn't stable, but it didn't need to be. All it needed was 4 words. 4 words that detonated the Bravo rumor mill and split the fandom straight down the middle. I'm late, and it's Todd's. No context, no confirmation, just chaos. Within hours, private messages became public guesses. Fan accounts turned into detectives. Blogs lit up like emergency flares. And in the center of the blast radius was Kandi watching her marriage get dragged into a digital crime scene she never signed up for. Because this wasn't just another rumor. This threatened reputations. It threatened family. And it threatened a life she had spent years building. And just when social media thought it had hit peak chaos, a second wave began whispering through inboxes and group chats. An alleged DNA document. Unverified, unsourced, but loud enough to break trust in real time. Atlanta didn't sleep that night. It scrolled. It refreshed. It judged. And while the internet debated, one thing was undeniable. The past was no longer buried. Because long before a tape, long before a report, there had been tension. There had been confrontations. There had been moments on camera that looked uncomfortable then and catastrophic now. And what many viewers are now re-examining isn't just what happened last night, but everything that led up to it. Because according to people close to the production, the real explosion had been building quietly for months. Behind scenes, behind group dinners, behind hot smiles, and at the center of it, 2 women who once shared a circle now standing on opposite ends of a scandal. Kandi, Porsha. And the moment everything finally snapped, it didn't happen online. It happened in a room full of cameras. This chick tried to turn it around and said that we tried to drug her. You told someone that you were going to drug me and take me to a sex dungeon. Sure, do you hear this lie? Leave the drug thing alone. Yeah, that ain't no surface shade. That is some deep, deep lyle. I will sue your ass if you keep saying it. I know that. Lying ass, she has the right to deny that. You can have the right to stop saying that, I know that. You not even thinking about the fact that I got kids. Don't try to ruin my life. Ruin my business. Is ruining everything in that type of. And that is where the story shifted from rumor to something darker. Because when words like drugging enter the room, everything changes. This is no longer shade. This is no longer TV drama. This is the kind of allegation that follows someone forever. And those watching in real time didn't need a narrator to tell them what they were seeing. They could hear it in her voice. Fear. Not for a storyline. For a life. And suddenly the late-night leak wasn't isolated at all. It was just the final match thrown onto a pile of gasoline that had been stacked for years. Fans began asking the uncomfortable questions. Why did those kinds of claims come out at all? Who first said them? And why did they resurface now when a tape goes viral? What looks random to the internet rarely is. And insiders say this moment didn't happen by accident, because behind the editing room, producers reportedly knew the temperature had been rising. Rooms got quieter, conversations got shorter, filming nights got heavier. And then came the messages, the receipts, texts that didn't read like fear. They read like comfort, invitations, movement, the kind of proof that doesn't tell the whole story, but it complicates it. Which is why, for Kandi, the tape wasn't just shocking. It felt familiar in the worst way, because it looked like a repeat of what she says she had already survived. Public lies, private damage, and now a secret that threatened to break everything in half. And when all of that hit at once, a person either collapses or explodes. Kandi did both. As filming continued, cast members tried to calm the room. But no one could stop an emotional avalanche once it started. Because once the damage to children, to business, to reputation enters the conversation, the gloves come off, and by the time cameras rolled again, no one was acting. I'm just saying I just can't stand the fact that she keep lying though. She can break down on this floor and roll all the way to that water for her to fake that up. I can't take that. This chick said that we tried to drug her is no limit to how far she would go. I understand why she's so angry. This is something that's criminal. You can go to jail for drugging someone. You can't make this up. Come out your ass now. That moment changed the room. You could hear it go quiet. Not awkward quiet. Heavy quiet. The kind of silence that only comes after something irreversible has been said. And that's when the footage stopped being reality TV and started looking like a family breaking in public. And then came the part no editor could soften. No soundtrack could mute. No caption could clean. Kandi stood up. Not dramatic, not rehearsed, just done. And when she moved toward Porsha, it wasn't for the cameras. It wasn't for storyline. It was betrayal walking toward its source. People shouted, security rushed, names flew through the air like glass, and somewhere between disbelief and panic, the cast realized. This wasn't something you wrapped by the end of an episode. This was the kind of rupture that rewrites the entire season. And when Todd finally entered the scene, the room didn't react. It froze. Because when he spoke, it wasn't as a character. It was as a man staring down the possibility that nothing in his life was stable anymore. If that baby is mine, everything is over. No music, no confessional, just a truth grenade with no place to land safely. And Kandi, she didn't yell, she didn't swing, she sank to the floor where betrayal doesn't feel like drama, it feels like grief. And as security worked to separate them, as producers shouted cut, as cameras shook, one thing became brutally clear. This story doesn't end with who's right. It ends with who survives it. Because when allegations, relationships, and reputations collide, no one walks away clean. And somewhere in the chaos, a producer leaned to another and whispered 5 words that would break the internet all over again. We have another tape. And this one confirms everything. Black screen. The cameras stopped rolling. But the damage didn't, because when a room explodes like that, it doesn't go quiet. It just goes underground. By sunrise, Atlanta wasn't asking what happened anymore. It was asking what's true and what was staged. Screenshots multiplied overnight. Voice notes leaked into DMs. Anonymous accounts suddenly appeared with profile bios like "I know everything and they've been lying to you." And right in the middle of the storm, one word: pregnancy. Not as a fact, not as evidence, but as a weapon. Because insiders say once the alleged tape hit private chat groups, the narrative fractured instantly. There were 2 camps by morning. One believed it all, the other believed none of it, and both sides were willing to go to war. The show's producers silent, the network invisible, the cast locked into private meetings with lawyers, and Kandi sources close to her say she didn't sleep. Not from stress, from shock. Because while the internet saw a rumor, she saw her life being disassembled piece by piece. People around production say no one was prepared for how fast things moved after that night. What began as reality TV tension suddenly felt like a courtroom without walls. Every text was examined, every smile reinterpreted, every hug replayed in slow motion on fan accounts. Even moments from years ago, scenes that meant nothing at the time, were suddenly being re-edited into proof. A look, a pause, a shift in posture. The internet doesn't forget, but worse, it rewrites. And by the second day, the story wasn't just about that night. It became about a pattern. Fans dug deep, not weeks, years. Anything involving Todd, anything involving Porsche, anything ever said in anger. Side-by-side compilations flooded timelines. Coincidences started trending. People weren't watching anymore. They were building theories. And then something else happened. No announcement, no press release, just a silence so loud it became suspicious. For over 48 hours, no one spoke publicly. Not Kandi, not Porsche, not Todd, not the network. And in this business, silence is rarely accidental. Journalists try to reach sources close to the cast. All got the same response. No comment at this time, which only made things worse, because when nobody speaks, everyone assumes someone's guilty. And then came the next twist. A message began circulating on private accounts allegedly from someone close to production. No name, no face, just a claim. There's more that hasn't aired yet. And it's worse. Reddit went feral. Twitter collapsed. TikTok turned into a courtroom, and suddenly everyone wasn't asking if there was another tape. They were asking, what's on it? Is it audio? Is it video? Is it old? Is it recent? Is someone about to be destroyed? And that's when two narratives collided. One painted Kandi as a woman fighting lies with everything she had. The other painted her as someone who had just discovered something that couldn't be undone. And somewhere inside that mess, Todd became the ghost between them. Not on camera, not online, but everywhere in the story. Every theory looped back to him. Every question ended at his name. Fans asked, why hasn't he denied it harder? Why hasn't he confirmed anything? Why does nobody know where he is? And the darker the silence grew, the louder the assumptions became. Because when a man disappears during a scandal, people don't assume peace. They assume pressure. And then the blogs dropped what they called a timeline. An unofficial one. A compilation of supposed events arranged to make the story look inevitable. Messages, trips, quiet distance. They didn't prove anything, but they connected dots in a way that felt dangerous, because the human brain doesn't need evidence to panic. It only needs possibility. And possibility was everywhere. Some fans swear the tape is real. Others claim it's manufactured. Some believe the DNA report exists. Others say it's the internet playing telephone with lies. But here's the part no one can explain. Why are lawyers suddenly in the room? Why have private meetings happened off camera? Why has filming reportedly been delayed? When reality TV gets quiet, it's usually because something real just walked in. And now the audience is trapped between two stories. One says this is a smear campaign. The other says this is the truth crawling out. And neither side is blinking. Because unlike past drama, this one isn't loud, it's strategic. Everything is slow, calculated, waiting, and when stakes involve family, money, reputation, nobody plays fair. By the third night, one comment started appearing everywhere. This isn't a season storyline. This is a life storyline. And that's when a new phrase began trending. The unreleased episode. Fans are convinced there's footage leaked or not, saved or not, but recorded. And until that footage surfaces, no one wins. Because the truth isn't out yet. And the lie, whichever it is still breathing. By the fourth night, the silence didn't feel accidental anymore. It felt engineered. No statements, no denials, no confirmations, only movement behind closed doors. And in today's media world, when nothing is said, everything is heard. Because during a scandal this loud, quiet isn't peace. Quiet is a setup. And then just after twilight, a single file appeared in a private group chat. No logo, no context, no sender name, just a title for your ears only. No attachments, no preview. Only 8 seconds later, a second message. This changes everything. Within minutes, that chat lit up. People requested access. Screens were recording. Someone's screen captured a screen recording. And just like that, the internet did what it always does. It leaked itself. By midnight, the phrase new tape was trending again. Not the original audio, not the alleged DNA chatter. A new file. Something no one expected. Not loud, not emotional. Cold, measured, too calm to be fake. A voice alleged by some listeners to resemble Porsha's cadence. Another presence barely audible. Possibly Todd's, possibly not. The audio was clipped, tampered, and incomplete. But that didn't stop the reaction because context doesn't matter online, only impact does. The audio didn't say anything explicit. It didn't confirm pregnancy. It didn't deny it. What it did was worse. It sounded controlled, careful, like someone managing a situation instead of reacting to one. And that's what triggered something deeper. Because when an alleged leak doesn't explode, it calculates. And audiences don't respond to chaos anymore. They respond to strategy. Suddenly, this didn't feel like a scandal. It felt like chess. Fans began asking, why now? Why this file? Why now? After the violent scene. Why when the network went quiet? Nothing viral is ever early. It's always late on purpose. And when investigators started comparing timestamps from the previous leaks, patterns surfaced. Screenshots from months ago, voice messages from weeks ago, and suddenly, what looked random began forming a spine, a timeline. And in that timeline, one thing appeared again and again. Distance, not emotional, not public, operational. Todd, according to observers, hadn't just pulled away from filming. He'd pulled away from everyone, canceled meetings, no appearances, no drives, no statements. People close to production say his absence wasn't dramatic. It was deliberate, and that's what unsettled fans because panic is loud. Planning is silent. Then came the next wave. A second source. This time not audio text. Not a backup. Not a screenshot. A draft email. Allegedly never sent, but recovered from a device that may or may not have passed through production hands. The email was short. 3 paragraphs. No greetings, no sign-off. It read like a warning, not a message. And buried in the middle was one sentence that fractured the internet. If this is ever made public, no one walks away clean. Not dramatic, not emotional, strategic. Fans didn't analyze the words, they analyzed the tone. This wasn't written in anger. It was written in calculation. And that changed the temperature entirely. Because now the alleged scandal wasn't about passion. It was about control, which is something entirely different. And then something stranger surfaced. Not audio, not text. Video 3 seconds. Grainy. Low light. Security cam angle. A hallway. A door partially open. Someone walking past. Not clear enough to identify, but clear enough to suggest something was being hidden. And that's when the phrase door video began circling online. It was never posted publicly, only described by those who claimed to have seen it. They all said the same thing. It doesn't prove anything, but it implies everything. And implication is the most dangerous kind of evidence because it forces the brain to finish the story on its own. And with the internet, that story is never gentle. By dawn, fan accounts had split into armies. One side believed the scandal had been planted to destabilize Kandi. The other believed the truth had simply leaked faster than it could be buried. Nobody trusted the network. Nobody trusted the blogs. Nobody trusted anyone because all trust evaporates when the story outpaces the truth. And inside this collapse, one name echoed louder than the rest. Todd, not accused, not defended, just present, always at the center, like the eye of a storm that refuses to move. Insiders claim that during the night the new audio surfaced, a meeting took place, not filmed, not leaked, just rumored. And in that meeting, lawyers took over. Not managers, not PR handlers, legal teams. When lawyers enter a story this fast, it means something real is at risk, not reputation, exposure. Because lawsuits aren't filed over speculation, they're prepared over evidence. And suddenly, watchers weren't asking what would happen next. They were asking who would hit first. A lawsuit, a denial, a release, a confession. Which would come first? Because in scandals like this, silence is rarely the end. It's the inhale before the strike. And then evening arrived, and with it another leak. Smaller, not dramatic. Just one sentence from someone who claimed to work near post-production. It read, "This season is getting recut." That phrase alone was seismic. Because edits change narratives. They erase villains. They create heroes. They rewrite history frame by frame. And if the season is changing, it's because someone wants control back. But you don't edit what isn't dangerous. You don't remove what doesn't hurt. Which means something on tape is being protected from the public, and something else is being buried. Fans questioned, is the new cut meant to expose or erase? Are we about to see more or less? And now, the audience is stuck in something worse than suspense, uncertainty, because lies are loud, but truth moves quietly, sometimes underneath, sometimes too late, and somewhere between the old tape and the new file. One thought is haunting every timeline. What if the first leak wasn't the reveal? What if it was the destruction? Because misdirection is not fictional, it's strategic. And when you have more than one leak, It's never accidental. It's controlled damage. So now the audience waits. Not for proof, for permission. Permission for the network to speak, for the cast to break, for one person to crack, because eventually someone always does. And when they do, everything that was whispered becomes claimed. Everything denied becomes questioned. And what was edited out becomes center screen. And then this happened. A final message appeared in a private story. No name, no brand, no verification, just 7 words. It's not the tape you think. That was it. Nothing else. And that is what terrified everyone. Because if the leak is not what it seems, then someone is guiding the fire. And if someone is guiding it, they also decide where it burns. Now the clock is ticking. Not metaphorically, contractually, legally, publicly. The next move will not be emotional. It will be coordinated. Because by now, everyone knows this story is no longer about pregnancy. It's about power. Who controls the narrative? Who ends the season? Who leaves clean? And who gets dragged into a version of history they didn't write, but will have to live with? And as the district sleeps again, another notification lights up another phone somewhere quietly. And the message on that screen is simple. Tomorrow changes everything. Black screen. If you've made it this far, you already know this wasn't just another messy rumor. This was a fracture. A moment where silence became louder than screaming, and every unanswered question turned into its own kind of evidence. Because when power meets privacy, something always breaks. And right now, nothing in the story feels finished. Not the tape. Not the messages. Not the vanishing timelines. Not the locked doors. Not the people who suddenly stopped talking. Every new detail raises a darker question. Was this chaos or coordination? Was it exposure or a strategy? Was this a leak or a warning? Some believe the truth is finally surfacing. Others believe the smartest lies hide in plain sight. And then there are those who whisper something much worse. That the real story hasn't aired yet. Not on TV. Not on vlogs. Not even online. Because behind every scandal, there's always a second layer. The one nobody wants to touch. The layer with lawyers instead of producers, meetings instead of scenes, and edits instead of answers. If you think this ends with one episode, think again. If you think this is just entertainment, look closer. And if you believe the final truth hasn't shown its face yet, you're not alone. So, stay with the story. Watch what unravels. Because when the next piece drops, and it will, the narrative won't be the same one you started with. Subscribe, stay alert, and don't trust the quiet. Because in this case, silence isn't peace.